To win a national championship, you need more than just five guys probably to have a big year. I think that more than five guys had a big year for Georgia in 2021 and 2022, and I can talk about that a little bit later. But these are five players that I feel like if it's going to work this season, if Georgia wants to win a national championship, they need these guys to show out and play really well. Now, a couple of them are going to be obvious. Some of it won't be quite as obvious. Maybe all of it's obvious. It's football, right? You need 11 guys on each side of the ball to be doing their job. But this is a different Georgia team, and they're talented. I don't know if the 24 team will be better than the 23 team. And I made a video about that. I don't think people liked that video, but this is a team that I view in a similar light. I think it's a very similar team. I don't think that too much has significantly changed. There are certain position groups where, yes, they have changed a lot. And the secondary is one of them. But the offensive line, very similar. Wide receiver room, pretty similar. You got some transfers in there. Front seven's pretty much the same, right? So who needs a big year in order for Georgia to really go off this season? And I'm going to start with the most obvious one, Carson Beck. Won't spend necessarily the most time talking about it, but it is an important part of the conversation. It'll get less obvious as we go. But look, Carson Beck, projected at this point to be the Heisman winner. Yeah, he's the front runner in Vegas in the clubhouse. George is the front runner in everything, winning the national championship in odds and all of that. Part of that's because of Carson Beck. I think they've entered a new territory where they're going to be relying on the quarterback. Stetson was asked to do a lot for Georgia, especially in 2022. But Carson Beck is projected to be the best player on this team. Is he the best? I think that another guy I'm going to talk about later on is probably their best football player. But Carson, on the offensive side of the ball, Look, the quarterback is the most important play. It just is what it is. It's football. It's the football the way that has grown. The quarterback position matters. It's one of the toughest positions to play in all of sports. And Carson Beck's one of the best in college football. If he takes a step forward, and a step forward from almost 4,000 yards, a 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, 72% completion percentage, 13-1, you crank out a little bit of those mistakes. You get rid of some of those. Right? Because he wasn't perfect. There were throws that should have been intercepted that weren't, right? There were some throws he wished he'd have packed. He wasn't great at the deep ball. Adding a little bit of that in, taking a little bit of that away, and Carson Beck takes a little bit more than just a small step forward, and Georgia's offense is looking elite again, because it's been an elite offense, whether people want to admit that or not. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post talking about five guys that I think need a really important season in 2024 if Georgia's going to win another national championship. I could give you way more than 5 reasons why you should sign up for the Dawg Post newsletter, but the only one I'll give you is that it's free, right? Real quick, check it out. It's in the description down below. You want content pushed out to you every single day. The Dawg Post newsletter is the best way to do that in terms of the Georgia Bulldogs football team. Thank you for hearing me out. Number 2, I'll go to defense on this one. The second most obvious, in my opinion, is Malachi Starks. Why? All-American safety. He's probably the most talented football player on this roster. Dude's a freak athletically. Georgia's going to be missing 2 safeties and a corner from last year. And there's been a lot of turnover in that secondary room. Malachi Starks will be the guy with the most snaps. He'll be the guy with the most starts. And he will be the guy that's the most talented. He needs to have a big year because at the end of the day, they've got to replace Javon Bullard. They've got to replace Tyke Smith. They've got to replace Kamari Lassiter. It's a lot of experience and knowledge and skill in a secondary room. Are the guys behind them Ja'Cory Thomas, Jonel Aguero, Julian Humphrey, Dan Jackson, Jake Pope? Those guys are good, right? The guys that might be starting in those positions. But Malachi Starks is going to be a first-round pick a year from now in 2025, right? He's going to be in those first 32 names called next year. Probably the first safety off the board. And they need to play like that, right? His production needs to look that way, in my opinion. I just think he needs a big year. Collectively, that group needs to play really well together. I didn't want to put 2 secondary guys on this list, so I was debating between the 2 corners, or Malachi Starks. But when you lose Javon Bullard, a guy that was a menace for 2 years, Tyke Smith, one of the most versatile defensive backs in the country from the last couple of years, and a guy that was super productive for Georgia, you need Malachi Starks to be playing like Malachi Starks, like we know he can, which is making really freaky plays. Let's stick to defense here, and this will be the last defensive guy, so I'll round this out. I'm going to go back to offense after the last two. Number 3, Michael Williams, right? And I also was trying to make it go with most obvious to least obvious. Michael Williams, man, I made a video yesterday. This is Tuesday morning. I made this on Wednesday night. Well, I made a video on Monday night. I made another video on Monday morning that went out on Monday talking about what Kirby Smart said to Chris Lowe of ESPN, claiming that the defensive line is not going to be as good. It's a little bit weaker, or that Georgia's offensive line is really good. And I think that we know the truth is that Georgia's front seven just isn't quite as good as the standard that we hold it to, which is being absolutely elite. Michael Williams is projected. This guy is a guy that NFL teams are going to want a year from now. And he's shown a lot of flashes, and he could be really good. And now they're moving him outside, playing some outside linebacker in addition to that defensive end spot on the line. Well, it doesn't matter where he's at, but if he has a big year, Georgia is doing better. Because what have they lacked? Or what did they lack in 2023? It was an absolute game changer in the front seven. They have guys that can do that. Ismail Amanda can be that. Michael Williams can be that. Are they going to be that is the question. 10 sacks, Michael Williams? Is that too much to ask? Is an impact like that possible? Because an impact like that makes you a top 10 pick, man. Just putting that out there. And it makes Georgia a better defense. It just does. Offense, back to it. Let's talk about Jared Wilson, center for Georgia. It is hard to replace really good centers, and Cedric Van Pran was one of them. He's a very good center. 3 years as a starter, 44 consecutive starts. That's, yes, every single game from 21 to 23. That's 2 national championships. That's an Orange Bowl, a Peach Bowl, another Orange Bowl. He was there through it all. SEC championships. Voted the leader twice. And now Jared Wilson, what's the twister on him? Well, he's a freak athlete, right? Cedric Van Pran was the guy up here that you couldn't replace, and now apparently Jared Wilson is a guy you can't replace from an athletic standpoint in terms of an offensive lineman. Kirby saying that he outruns the DBs and the tight ends. Quite ridiculous. I don't think, wow, okay, brother, I can't believe I just did that on camera. But it's quite, he's not outrunning DBs, all right? And Ja'Cory Thomas made a comment about that as well. But Jared Wilson is an athletic freak, apparently. I'm excited to see it on display. We've seen it, not in a starting role, but we've seen it in garbage time. He's definitely gotten his fair share of snaps. Chemistry, he's got it a little bit, right? He's been working behind Cedric Van Pran, so he's worked with Carson Beck a lot. That's an important position that people don't talk about in football. It's gotten popularized because of people like Jason Kelsey, but if Jared Wilson has a really good year, then there's a seamless transition between him and Cedric Van Pran. That's just a problem they don't have to worry about because we've seen it. Center problems can be an issue. Alabama, college football playoff, right? Guy's not in Alabama anymore. Got ran out of town, and now he's at Ohio State. So you see the problem there. And the last one, I didn't want, this is a cop-out. A receiver. It doesn't have to be a particular one. I think Dominic Lovett and Dylan Bell seem to be the 2 starters. It's like locked in, like these guys are going to be on the field a lot. But someone in that receiver room needs to be a dog, in my opinion. Yes, they can do it by spreading the love. They've done it by spreading the love, but they need to have a main cat. I say that ironically. They need to have a main weapon, right? And that main weapon was Brock Bowers. When it wasn't Brock Bowers, it was Ladd McConkey, who is going to be Carson Beck's go-to weapon, a guy that's going to change the game. Is it going to be Dominic Lovett? Does Dylan Bell elevate? Does Arian Smith all of a sudden really play up his potential and is more than just a speedster? I do think that someone needs to step up in the wide receiver room and have a big year. I think they're capable of it. Yes, they can get it done without having a star, but they had one in Bowers both of those years. They had other talent around it in Pickens and Ladd and Marcus Rosby-Jackson and Burton. They had all sorts of talent. A.D. Mitchell. They need to get a step up. I think Dominic Lovett is going to get a lot of targets. I think he's going to work on the slot a lot. I think Dylan Bell's going to play a lot, but someone needs to step up. 5 guys, right? One of them, I didn't name a specific one, but they need to have big years if Georgia's going to win another national championship. Thank you for watching.